Repeat after me. Being kind does not mean having no boundaries. There is a big difference between being polite and holding the door open for someone versus being the doormat they wipe their shoes on. Boundaries affect everyone in every single relationship you have. From family and friends to romantic partners to coworkers to even your dog. Yeah. And whether you're aware of them or not, you're consciously or subconsciously setting these invisible good or bad boundaries. If you feel like you don't have a strong identity, or you feel people use you or walk all over you or often disrespect you, this video is for you. If you feel like you're constantly pouring into everyone's cup but your own, this video is for you. And even if you don't have any of these problems, you don't want to be the person who's overstepping boundaries, so you should keep watching too. So in today's video, we're going to talk about what boundaries are. I'll give you guys some questions to gauge your own boundaries. We'll talk about where bad boundaries come from, and then what type of toxic cycles and often common relationships they can lead to. And then finally, we'll talk about, how to set healthy boundaries and the friction and tension that might cause with other people when you actually start setting good boundaries and standing up for yourself. And guys, I am not just sitting here high and mighty with it all figured out. No. When I tell you, I am in the thick of it myself, and that's why I've decided to make this video. Yeah, that's on that. That's the tea that we're gonna get into later. Also, hit the subscribe button if you are on a holistic self-growth journey, because on this channel we talk about mental health, physical health, and financial health. First things first, what are boundaries? Boundaries are this invisible fence, pretty much, a line in the sand that marks our limits with other people. It dictates how others can treat you, how others can behave around you, what others can expect from you. I like to think of boundaries like having a home. So let's say you have this beautiful home, which is, in this analogy, you'll definitely want some house rules, because there are gonna be things that you're not comfortable with. Maybe that's, no, you don't like shoes in the house. Maybe that's literally just you need to ring the doorbell or knock on the door before you just come in. And obviously this is one type of analogy, but there are so many different kinds of boundaries. There's mental boundaries, physical boundaries, financial, emotional, sexual boundaries, time boundaries. And good boundaries means knowing yourself and knowing what you will and will not accept, and making sure that other people know that too and respect it. And if you're watching this thinking, this might be me. This might be something I struggle with. Here are some question prompts to gauge your relationship with boundaries. Do you feel like people take advantage of you, or that you're a pushover? Or do you have a hard time standing up for yourself when someone makes you uncomfortable? Do you feel like you jump to please people and yield to their wishes? Do you often feel scared to rock the boat or upset people or let someone down to the point where you let yourself down? Do you feel like you constantly have to save people or fix their problems all the time? Doing all of these things that I mentioned protects everyone but yourself. You prioritize other people's time, money, energy at the cost of your own. But the thing about all of this is you cannot sacrifice yourself for someone else. And let me tell you why boundaries are important. When I understood boundaries, I felt like all of a sudden I had 20/20 vision. I could see everyone's bullshit. All of a sudden I realized, excuse me, why are you so okay treating me like that? Why are you so comfortable expecting me to do this for you? Then I realized I needed to take responsibility and let people know where my line was and tell them to back up. Because guess what? Nobody is going to do that for you. And there are, unfortunately, a lot of people out there that are like vampires. They will suck your time, your money, your energy, your freaking soul right out of you if you let them. I don't even think these types of people are evil people or doing it intentionally all the time. I think they see something that they like, that they have access to as an asset, and they sometimes exploit that. If they don't see a red light, they're not going to stop themselves, you know, like they're going to assume it's a green light. So you need to tell people what the rules are in your house. And I'm not victim blaming because it's not your fault if someone mistreats you, right? But it is up to you with what you do about that, with how you respond. And we definitely don't want to encourage or, you know, just let continue bad behavior. There's this quote that's like, givers need to set limits because takers rarely do. The second thing is boundaries are also really important because if you know, just try to keep everyone happy and you let things slide, things that make you really uncomfortable, if you do that consistently, that's gonna build up a lot of anger and frustration and even resentment towards the people around you. So let's run it back to the house analogy. Let's say you don't like shoes in your house, right? That really bothers you. But because you're not enforcing it or being assertive about it, everyone's just coming in with sneakers and muddying up your white carpet and bringing in dirty grime, dusty crustiness from outside. And you're letting everyone in the house with these dirty sneakers because you're trying to be a nice guest. You're trying to be polite and make sure everyone feels comfortable and in their element. But now, low-key, high-key, you're fuming at them. You're angry as hell. I always think of this saying, you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. And so I know there's probably something. What is this reminding you of? What are the things you are not okay with but still allowing? What is it that you just need to tell people but that you're kind of like biting your tongue on? Maybe it's telling a parent, hey, when we talk, I don't want to bring up the topic of politics because that always devolves into arguments. Telling a friend, hey, my free time is not automatically yours. Even if I'm free, you can't just assume that I'm free to hang out with you. And if you're listening to all of this, like, I have a lot of work to do. The good news is, like, you can start setting healthy boundaries today. Having strong boundaries is really the glue of a strong relationship, and people will respect you when they see you respect yourself and that you have a spine and that you're standing up for yourself. And you will see a change in your own confidence, self-esteem, and like emotional stability. But before we get into fixing bad boundaries, I keep wanting to say bad bunny. Bad bunny, bad boundaries, bad bunny, bad blah, blah, whatever. Fixing bad boundaries. Let's talk about where those come from. Because it's really easy to hear all this and think like, damn, I have no spine. How could I be like this? Pause. Let's approach this from a place of love and understanding yourself. Understand that boundaries go hand in hand with self-esteem. People with high self-esteem usually have stronger boundaries, and people with lower self-esteem usually have weaker boundaries. Oftentimes, these are people who don't have a strong grip on who they are, what they stand for, what their values are, what their opinions are. From an attachment theory perspective, they're oftentimes people with unhealthy attachment styles, like avoidant attachment styles or anxious attachment styles. And most of the time, those attachment styles come from traumatic events or our childhood. I feel like everything goes back to childhood at some point. Maybe you grew up with parents who didn't show you unconditional love, and love was something that had to be earned, and you need to please people in order to, you know, gain affection and attention and love. And so you are so ready to just throw your own needs out the window and cater to other people. Maybe you had parents or people you grew up with who guilt tripped you. So that could look or sound like, why do you not want to spend your birthday with me? You know, that makes me so sad. Why do you make me so sad? You're so ungrateful. So you learn to associate vocalizing your wants with hurting your parents. Personally, for me, I grew up in an environment where it's actually really common in South Asian households, where it's like your parents are always right. It doesn't matter if they're wrong, they're right. So don't you dare challenge them, disagree with them, or even just literally like bring another opinion to the table. There wasn't any room for discussion about things or like healthy disagreements. And so me setting healthy boundaries was seen as disrespectful, rude, ungrateful, just like being a bad child. And so in adulthood, a lot of times when I sensed tension in a conversation, or even literally just like I had a different opinion from someone, I just like like immediately changed my mind and like yielded to this person and just gave in to whatever they were saying. So maybe do some journaling or reflect on this. If you feel like you don't have proper boundaries, where do you think your lack of boundaries comes from? And so when you grow up with poor boundaries, you signal to other people that you don't know how to say no. You don't know how to protect yourself. And so that can leave you vulnerable to people who want to control you. That leads to common dynamics like people pleaser and overstepper. And so we got the people pleaser who doesn't know how to say no, does everything for everyone else. And then we got the overstepper who, takes advantage of that and knows that this person will do anything for them. Man, right here, that is like the toxic match made in hell. Now, the time has come. Let's learn how to set good boundaries. Because at some point, you gotta ask yourself why people are overstepping and ask yourself why you keep allowing it. I love this quote by Brene Brown that says, "Daring to set boundaries is having the courage to love ourselves even when we risk disappointing others." Because this is about prioritizing you and keeping you safe and healthy. So naturally, the first step is figuring out what that is, what you want. You need to decide that for yourself by reflecting on your core beliefs, your values, your culture, your opinion. Number 2 is communicating those lines in the sand, those fences, saying, no. You do not need to be rude about it. You can politely and assertively draw the line. And notice how I said politely and assertively, because both can coexist. Again, I always grew up thinking you could not be assertive and polite because being assertive was inherently rude. Not the case. Number 3 is being consistent. If you want others to respect your boundaries, you gotta respect them yourself. You can't be loosey-goosey, flimsy-gimsy, I don't know, flimsy-gimsy. If one day you're letting your friend step all over you and yell at you and curse at you and not do anything, and then the next day you're, being assertive and standing up for yourself, but then the day after that you're letting them do that again, they're gonna be like, this girl isn't serious. You're sending mixed signals. And when people respect you, it's because you're clear on what you want. Number 4 is decide what the consequences are. Maybe if someone is calling you and yelling at you, maybe it's as simple as hanging up every time they do that. Because when someone consistently disrespects your boundaries, they're letting you know what you want doesn't matter to them. So you have to decide how you want to move forward with that. Maybe it's keeping some space from this person. Maybe it's cutting them off entirely. That looks like different things for everyone. But doing that can be really scary, right? Especially if you're not used to doing that. Like, you don't want to cause friction, you don't want to rock the boat, you don't want to upset people. And I hate to break it to you. I'm actually sorry. Like, that's going to happen. That is just part of setting boundaries, is you might upset some people. And it's hard because some people think you're being mean, some people think you're pushing them away, but really what you're doing is you're taking back your control of your own life and you're shifting the dynamic, you're shifting the tone of the relationship. If this is 2 people in a relationship and they have, this dynamic that they're used to, what you're doing is, and the other person is gonna have to readjust with you. When someone has had so much access to you, to your time or your energy for a long period of time, there's a natural entitlement that grows with that they think, they have a right to all of a sudden. And when you cut that off, that's going to piss some people off that they can't have you in that same way. When you start telling your boss, actually, I don't answer emails on the weekend. When you start telling your family members, actually, I'm not going to take your calls anymore if you continue speaking to me in this way. What? That will leave people shooketh, okay? Here's the thing. Let them be shook. Let them be shooketh. I read this thing that said the only people who get really upset about you setting boundaries are the same people who benefited the most from you having none. That part though. And look, after you've communicated your new boundaries, you can give people an adjustment period, and everyone is gonna have a different bandwidth of how patient they're willing to be with people in their life. For maybe family members, you're willing to, give them grace of months or maybe even years to kind of readjust to that new boundary of yours. And maybe for other people, third strike and you're out. If they can't get with the program, it's not going to work out. This is also why setting boundaries is amazing, because now you can easily weave out who respects you and who doesn't. Because people who really love you, they don't want you to destroy yourself and just sacrifice your values or your judgment or, your beliefs in service of them. And like I said before, you're gonna feel discomfort from others, but you're also gonna feel discomfort towards yourself. When I finally started setting clear-cut boundaries, I was like low-key mad at myself, and here's why. Like I said, I think in the past I let so much slide that I was not comfortable with. With one person, they had done really hurtful things over the course of many years, and they were quick to invalidate me. When I tell you, standing up for myself brought on hell. World War III, truly. It made me feel like, damn, this person was so used to like being able to walk all over me. Like having the smallest strand of self-respect was mind-blowing to them. Like, how dare she do that? And because of like their reactions, I felt kind of crappy about myself. I was like, how did I let this go on for this long? How did it get this bad? Like, why did I not cut them off sooner? And look, at the end of the day, you have to forgive other past versions of you when you didn't know any better. And while you are moving forward with boundaries, here are 3 really important things to note. Number 1 is don't confuse boundaries with suppressing other people. Boundaries are not about controlling other people, because that's just another form of a bad boundary. Boundaries does not look like you're not allowed to spend money on this. You're not allowed to go here because that's my boundaries. Like, sis, no, okay? That's just toxic. Number 2 is know that there are going to be environments where boundaries are going to be really difficult to set, like with your boss at work, because you are quite literally reliant on them for your paycheck, for your livelihood, to eat and have a roof over your head. So there is like this inherent power dynamic that unfortunately a lot of times gets abused because one person knows that the other person needs them, is dependent on them. This is a very similar thing with setting boundaries with parents, or someone you are reliant on. Number 3 is, listen, yes, boundaries are about knowing that you are not responsible for other people's emotions, other people's actions. But listen, honey, that doesn't mean that you don't impact them. Don't be an asshole and then be like, not my problem. And I'm gonna close today's video with this. Setting boundaries can oftentimes be uncomfortable for you and for other people involved. But not setting boundaries and letting people disrespect you will also be uncomfortable. So choose your discomfort. And I will always vouch for choosing yourself. And healthy people will respect you doing that, even if they don't agree. And most importantly, with all of this is that you'll respect yourself. And that is all I have for you guys today. If this video was at all helpful, please hit the like button because it lets YouTube know that you think this video should be recommended to more people. Comment down below your thoughts and your advice with boundaries so we can all help each other. And I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.
I've been feeling so down, yeah.